Hello and welcome to the USDA Risk Management Agency presentation on coffee tree pest and disease coverage and tree removal and replacement. Just a quick disclaimer before we get started. The purpose of the following material is to promote awareness of risk management concepts and to highlight USDA's risk management products, features, benefits, and availability. This material does not change the content or the meaning of current policy provisions, filed actuarial documents, or approved procedures. During this presentation, I will be going over the causes of loss that are covered under the Hawaii Tropical Trees Program, or as I will refer to it in this presentation, HTT, how pest and disease losses such as coffee leaf rust are covered, HTT settlement of claim, duties in the event of a loss, and lastly, optional endorsements that are available for coffee tree that include tree removal and replacement, such as the occurrence loss option and comprehensive tree value. Please keep in mind that the HTT program also includes banana and papaya trees. However, there are some differences in requirements between these crops. So for the purposes of this presentation, I will be focusing specifically on coffee trees. As you can see from the table below, these are the causes of loss that would be covered under the HTT program, beginning with adverse weather, disease, although not loss due to insufficient or improper application of control measures, insects, if not lost due to insufficient or improper application of control measures. And one thing to note here for coffee trees are that nematodes are not an insured cause of loss for trees that are less than 5 years of age. Fire due to natural causes is covered as well, unless weeds and other forms of undergrowth have not been controlled and unless pruning debris has not been removed from the field. Other causes of loss that are covered are earthquake, tsunami, volcanic eruption, wildlife, unless proper measures to control wildlife have not been taken, failure of irrigation water supply if caused by an insured peril, and the destruction of live trees. With the destruction of live trees, that is something that is in the HTT policy that covers banana and papaya only to control the spread of BBTV or PRV. At this time, we do not cover the cause of loss of destruction of live trees for coffee trees for something such as coffee leaf rust or coffee berry borer, for example. To receive a claim, the tree must be dead or destroyed. The tree will be assessed as dead when any of the insured causes of loss result in the following. For coffee trees, if the tree is uprooted, if there is no live wood in any of the verticals or in the trunk, if all the verticals are broken to less than 1 inch above the ground, or if the tree is diagnosed as diseased with nematodes, the infestation level has reached 50%, and the expected production from the tree is reduced by at least 40% as compared to the last 2 years. So if any of these conditions are met, the trees will be considered to be dead and an indemnity payment may be paid. The duties in the event of a loss for the grower, there are additional requirements for reporting losses that I will not cover here, but I wanted to highlight these two as they pertain more directly to coffee trees. So you must allow us to inspect all insured acreage before chipping or mulching any dead trees. And you must not destroy any live trees without our consent. Next, I will be discussing optional endorsements that are available for coffee trees. The first one is the occurrence loss option, or OLO. And this is an option available for coffee trees that changes the deductible to a per tree basis instead of a per unit basis, once the percent of dead or destroyed trees has exceeded 3%. To be eligible for OLO, you must have obtained insurance coverage for coffee trees. So that would be the base HTT policy. Then you would elect the OLO on the application on or before sales closing date. You would pay the additional premium indicated on the actuarial documents for coverage. And you must have not elected coverage under the catastrophic risk protection endorsement. One thing to note about the program dates and the actuarial documents, for those that may not be familiar with crop insurance, those can be located on the Risk Management Agency website, and I will provide a link for that website at the conclusion of this presentation. So here we have an example of the occurrence loss option indemnity calculation. So we have a grower that has insured 100 coffee trees at a coverage level of 75%. After a hurricane, 21 of his trees are considered dead. He has a 100% share and has not been previously paid any indemnities. The number of dead trees, 21 in this example, exceeds 3% of the insurable trees in the unit. As you can see from the indemnity calculation on the right side of the screen, the tree ages and values are as follows. So we have 50 trees that are 2 years old at a $19 reference price, totaling $950 value. The other 50 trees are 5 years old and they receive a $28 reference price, totaling $1,400 value, for a total value of $2,350. For the 21 dead coffee trees, we have 5 trees that are 2 years old, and they would again get that $19 reference price, totaling $95 value. And the 16 trees are 5 years old, receiving a $28 reference price, equaling $448 value. Using step 1 below, we would then total these values and we would get $543. Then in step 2, we would take that amount and multiply it by the coverage level. In this situation, we're using 75%. That would equal $407. In step 3, we would then take that and multiply it by the producer's share. In this case, he has a 100% share. In step 4, we would multiply the amount by an underreport factor. In this case, that would be 1. An underreport factor would only be used if the number of trees or the acreage was misreported on the acreage report. But in this scenario, we are using a factor of 1. And in step 5, we would subtract any previous indemnities. Since there were no previous indemnities, the total indemnity in this scenario would then be $407. The next endorsement available for coffee trees is the Comprehensive Tree Value, or CTV, which is an additional supplemental endorsement to the base HTT policy provisions, which determines the present value and future value for destroyed or fully damaged trees until the replacement tree reaches the productive age of the dead or destroyed tree. Some of the eligibility requirements for CTV are that the coverage level elected by the insured for their base HTT policy will also apply to this endorsement. So for example, if you had a 75% coverage level on your base policy, you would have the same coverage level on this endorsement. The provisions of this endorsement are continuous and will carry on year after year. The provisions of this endorsement will be made part of the insured's HTT base policy if the insured elects it on or before the sales closing date. And the endorsement may be canceled by giving written notice on or before the cancellation date. And again, these program dates will be located on the RMA website under the Actuarial Information Browser. If at any time the insured's HTT policy is canceled or terminated, the endorsement will also be automatically canceled or terminated. If the insured has elected the occurrence loss option, or OLO, those provisions will apply to this endorsement for coffee trees only. For the CTV settlement of a claim and the action of removal of trees, the trees must be chipped and mulched or removed from the field. The removed trees must then be replanted to either coffee trees, other tropical trees, or another perennial crop. And if the loss was due to a nematode infestation, the land must be fallowed for a period of time as specified in the special provisions of insurance. And those special provisions, again, would be located on the RMA website under the Actuarial Information Browser. Lastly, the indemnity payment will be made in 2 installments. The replant must be completed within 2 years from the date of the claim for full payment. If the replant is not completed, there will be no refunding or discounting of premium. If the coffee trees are dead or destroyed due to an insured cause of loss, any potential indemnity payment due will be made in 2 installments. And that first half will be payable at the time the land has been cleared and the soil treatment required has been completed. The second half would be payable at the time the land has been replanted to either coffee trees, other tropical trees, or another perennial crop. And that is something that the grower will be certifying to their insurance provider. Lastly, we have an example of a CTV settlement of claim. So Joe Farmer has 500 insured coffee trees and a coverage level of 75%. The orchard sustained a loss due to a hurricane, and 225 of his trees are considered dead. He has a 100% share of the trees and has not been previously paid any indemnities. He has selected the CTV endorsement, and the percent loss determined for his HTT base policy was 45%. So looking at the tree ages and values below, we see that he has 200 trees insured at 2 years old at $3 CTV reference price, totaling $600. 300 trees that are 5 years old, receiving a $6 CTV reference price. And following step 1, we would combine those two totals and we would get $2,400. In step 2, we would then take that amount and multiply it by the percent loss that was determined for the HTT base policy. In this case, it was a 45% loss. We multiply that, which comes out to $1,080. Steps 3 through 5 are the same as they are for the occurrence loss option. We would then multiply that amount in step 3 by the producer's share, which is 100%. Step 4 would be multiplying it by the underreport factor, which again in this scenario is 1. And in step 5, we would subtract any paid indemnities from that amount. Since there were no paid indemnities, the total amount for the CTV in this scenario would be $1,080. That concludes this presentation on coffee trees. Additional information can be found on the RMA website at the link provided here. Information such as program dates, special provisions of insurance, and the agent locator tool where you can reach out to crop insurance agents that can help you find the risk management needs for your farm.